we do have data, perhaps there is a way to run the numbers and say, if the out-of-town was 5 and locals were 4, or something like that, really what is the financial model?
We can explore that option of creating an identifier for resident and non-resident. However, I think that because of the numbers that we have now, that the significant users, 4 times the number of users are out-of-town residents, that number of residents that are using the daily pool is not significant. The vast majority of season pass holders are residents. And so I think that residents favor the season pass versus the daily pass. I think I don't know what the composition of the daily pass may be visitors and may not necessarily be resident, maybe folks visiting Yellow Springs residents.
I see what you're saying,
Yeah,
Jose.
so there are more challenges there to
Thank
look
you.
at.
Megan, did you want to say something? Yep. Can you come up? I think we got the batteries now, so.
Okay, Megan Hoffman, Yellow Springs News. What happened to the Miami Township rates?
Oh, yeah, so we went with a resident, non-resident, so Miami Township is non-resident. Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I will say, and I mentioned this in prior discussions, however we vote, I do want there to be information, and again, like a little quad flyer for any resident that does the daily rate, to let them know that we have Swim for All, that we have passes, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely,
Right?
that's something that we will promote at the front desk,
Yeah.
of what programs are available, and any resources that are available.
Okay. So, any other comments? All right, so I think we're going to vote on this, and Judy, if you could, I'm going to close the public hearing, thank you, and then we're going to vote, and Judy, if you could do the roll call, please?
Absolutely. Stokes?
Yes.
Krieger?
Yes.
Sanford?
Yes.
McQueen?
Yes.
Hausch?
Yes. Okay. Thanks to staff for working on this. I think it was important to get the data, so. Okay, next up, we have ordinance 2019-32, and we can do this by title only as well.
Okay, this is repealing Section 1042.01 electric service charges of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new Section 1042.01 electric service charges.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I move.
Second.
All right. All right, Josue, I think this is yours as well.
Yes, thank you. The proposed ordinance before council repealing and replacing chapter 104201 electric service charges regarding solar generation. This eliminates the existing cap on residential solar, changes the interconnection agreement from net metering to net billing, and establishes a different buy-sell rate for residential solar customers, reduces the system size for applicable power demand charges. Over the last 2 weeks, staff has worked on plans to operationalize the ordinance, which includes determining the new meter pricing, installation of meters required to capture data for new residential solar customers, and estimating demand charges. Through this process, we discovered that certain customers would be adversely affected by installing systems slightly larger than 10 kWs, where customers will pay a higher electricity bill to the village by switching to solar. We believe it is necessary to adjust the system size requirement for power demand charges from 10 kW to 12 kWs. The other changes that we presented at the last meeting and the introduction of this ordinance remain the same. That being that the buy rate is at 11 cents per kilowatt hour, and the residents will sell at 9 cents a kilowatt hour.
Okay. So can we talk a little bit more about the bump from 10 kilowatts to 12 kilowatts?
Yes. There are some customers who would install a 10 kW system, may have a demand that the demand charge is based per kilowatt of load that they have. So when doing our assessment on the demand charges, those customers may see, give you an example, someone who may use 1,000 kilowatt hours, and they have a 5 kilowatt demand charge. That's $50 based on $10 per kilowatt. That adds $50 to the bill. The net savings that they may generate by installing solar and selling it to us during the day, consuming it at night, they may only see a realization of $40 savings in their energy bill. So their energy bill will be, for the same consumption, at $10 more overall. So those folks right at that size of 10 to 12, they may be adversely affected based on their peak load and the demand charge associated with their peak load on a 30-minute increments. Johnny is in the room, and he's been part of the conversation, and so has Dan, as we were trying to troubleshoot this issue that's come up.
So the idea was, even though there was an average of 7 kilowatts, we have enough users that are above the 10 that we wanted to make this modification, is that?
Correct, and a lot of that is just based on what may be slightly higher than an average household, not significantly larger, that they would see an increase in their bill, and we're looking at what would cost the increase in the bill. A lot of it is, they're not adding an additional load. This is on the existing load that they have in their home.
Okay.
Dan, John, is there anything you would like to add?
Dan, you can't help yourself, get up there.
I'm Dan Rudolph. Yeah, I think what we discussed was that the demand charge, especially if you had items that were peaking loads, like charging an electric car while you're drying clothes or something like that, would cost a reasonable amount of money, and especially for the sort of moderate-sized systems, that could make those people's energy bills be pretty high. So this increasing it so we have the systems under 12 kilowatts seems like a good alternative to that.
Okay, thanks. John?
One of the driving factors that we need to mention is for systems, there's like 10.8. So when we're 0.8 over, it would cost the village more money to make some money. Because then we go to a manual read system, then the meter reader has to go out there every month. They have to download the meters. Plus they're required to have 2 meters on the house versus 1. So we were spending more money to make just a little bit of money. So by moving it to 12 kW, there's only 4 people out there now that this will affect. So it's
Only 4 people that are above the
4 people that are
12K?
above. So we have 2 15s, 123, and 120 right now
Gotcha.
that are laying on the desk to be approved.
Okay,
So.
thanks. Okay, this is the second reading, so I'm gonna open the public hearing. Questions or comments from council members?
That certainly does put it into context.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for all the work that everyone's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting to see things happen at a nice pace. Questions or comments from citizens? Eric?
I want to thank you because I have 11.
Now we know where this came from.
10.8. And limited it to the 4 systems. I guess the question it begs, are these 4 people getting a raw deal? And I wonder and you said they're on your desk, so they haven't been approved. I just wonder, can we just say that you can't have more than 12? I don't know if that's realistic, but I would hate to see people who buy a 20 kilowatt system and find out they're paying $200 a month for electricity or whatever.
They just need to be informed in detail as to what the ramifications are.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, let's make sure we do that.
Yes, and we
Or
will when we
facilitate.
have the review sessions. Would that happen with Johnny as they're looking through the paperwork and making comments on it? I want to point out that Eric was among the first people that knew that he would have to pay more, and he said, you know what, I'm okay with it. And we worked through it.
Great, well, I also want to appreciate the collaboration. I love that, village team members got right into it and that citizens were constructive to come to a positive resolution. It's great. It's what we want to happen with every issue. I do want to just reiterate, so that there's no confusion, in that table that talks about the buy-sell rates, 11 and 9 cents, I do want to reiterate that the ordinance does say every year we will look at the overall cost. And ultimately, that's, I think, where council feels very comfortable that we can maintain that equity balance. And so I'm really excited. I hope everybody else is happy as well. Thanks a lot. So with that, I'll close the public hearing. And Judy, if you could call the roll?
Yes. Krieger.
Yes.
Sanford.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes. Okay. Next up, we have Resolution 2019-39, and Judy, if we could read that in full, please?
Yes, this is declaring intent to create an Energy Special Improvement District, or ESID. Whereas Council for the Village of Yellow Springs firmly believes that economic development is essential to the continued financial health and well-being of the village, and whereas this council recognizes the necessity for programs which would allow special financing opportunities for energy efficiency improvements, technologies, products, and activities that reduce or support the reduction of energy consumption, that allow for the reduction in demand or support the production of clean, renewable energy, and that are or will be permanently fixed to real property. And whereas Chapter 1710 of the Ohio Revised Code allows for creation of Energy Special Improvement Districts, ESIDs, to be governed by a nonprofit board, and whereas once the ESID is formed, the nonprofit board will approve projects, which, however, will still need to have council approval for the adoption of any real estate property assessments for each project. And whereas initial membership to establish the ESID requires at least one property owner whose project would be financed through this program. And whereas the Village of Yellow Springs wishes to establish the ESID under guidelines that are in concurrence with stated village values, now therefore be it resolved by Council for the Village of Yellow Springs that, Section 1, the village manager is hereby authorized to engage property owners for the purpose of securing a partnership to establish the ESID and to develop a project plan to be financed through the ESID. Section 2, Council declares its ongoing support for formation and continuation of the ESID.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay, Oswald?
All right, thank you, Brian. This is a direct response to the request from council at last council hearing that we express an interest in moving forward, and we wanted to signal to the village and to surrounding community that we were serious about our intent to establish an ESID, and that we wanted to establish those partnerships to move forward with the ESID and PACE financing. So this resolution does exactly that. It lets our partners and the village and in the township know that we're serious about the ESID and moving forward with it. I think, in addition, Brian forward a project that may fall in line with this, and they want to move quickly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, a residential project, actually. Okay, questions, comments? So one thing I want to emphasize is when you put down an energy special improvement district, that allows for what's called PACE financing, which essentially means when you do energy efficient improvements for a business, a nonprofit, the schools, a residence, that you can finance that for up to 10 years. And so what happens then is whatever the cost comes off of your property taxes. So it's a great way to do things like solar panels. One of the things that I would like to add to the first whereas is maybe after economic development and residential and business energy efficiency, something like that. But I want to make it clear that this is not just for businesses, and even if you are the schools, which doesn't normally get assessed for property tax, they can still set up and use this structure to finance some of the energy improvements that I know they're interested in. So, so I guess I'm going to make a motion to revise as suggested. Do we have any other questions or comments?
Is it to the first whereas or the second whereas, where you would identify the range of entities?
I guess I thought about the first whereas because, economic development is clearly about business, but then I want that energy efficiency or something like that.
So would you read that first?
So maybe it
clause
would
so I
say,
write
whereas
it down?
Council for the Village of Yellow Springs firmly believes that economic development and residential and business energy efficiency is essential, blah, blah. or
Okay.
are essential, thank you. Like having a
There's
grammarian
an
in the
editor in
crowd.
Verona.
Yes. See? Yeah, actually, believe me, I appreciate the grammar so much. Okay, questions or comments from citizens? All right, if not, all those in favor, so I guess I'll make a motion to, for the resolution to be revised as suggested.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
So now you need to actually vote on the resolution.
Oh,
You
that's
just
right,
voted
'cause
on
we
the
just did the
amendment, so-
resolution. Okay,
Yeah.
so can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
I move that we approve the resolution as revised.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. This is a great thing to do, by the way. Total no-brainer. Like, this is a really nice thing that a lot of organizations in town can take advantage of. Okay, so we have one more piece of legislation, which is Resolution 2019-40, and I think we can just read that by title only.
Sure, this is awarding a contract for replacement of a collapsed sewer line at 4 Xenia Avenue to Majors Enterprises Pipeline.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right. Josue, Johnny?
That's Johnny?
All right.
This is one that caught us by surprise, because we didn't even know it was there. So, at 5 Xenia Avenue, we was called out there for a small hole in the blacktop. And they have a laid-up storm line.
Is this Nippers parking lot?
It is, it's got a steel plate over it right now.
Yeah.
Right now, there is a steel plate over the hole, but actually what is underneath is a laid-up limestone, storm sewer. That it was not on our records or nothing, so we have actually got an easement on that. And we're going to be replacing it with a 24-inch storm and replacing the manhole. It's a laid-up brick manhole, and when it rains, it pours through there. So, we need to be able to replace it ASAP.
Oh, it's a storm sewer.
It is a storm sewer. It goes from a 24-inch to an 18-inch and a 24-inch to a laid-up limestone catch basin or a storm sewer. Drops into another 24, which turns into a 48 to go to the place. And in the middle of it, it's actually caved down. And we actually was aware of it like 3 days before the hole appeared because more pipeline couldn't get through it. And then all of a sudden, the hole back. So we need to, if we can get it passed tonight, we can maybe have it repaired prior to street fair. Because right now, every time it rains, the hole just gets water.
I have a question. Is it on private property?
It is on private property, but we have an easement for that.
Oh, yeah,
storm
yeah,
system.
I see. Okay, thanks.
You know, it seems like almost every meeting, we are highlighting more and more the importance of understanding what's underneath the streets. You know, I feel like we've made a lot of progress in other areas, but this is, I think, just one example. It's really concerning. It's very expensive. It has to be fixed. And I hope that it's not too much of a omen of more of this to come. But, I mean, I'm glad we're looking at it.
Well, what is the status of the stormwater survey?
The first 6 initial areas were done that we had major problems with. It is done. We've got the pricing back, so we're trying to see what we can get repaired this year. One is Dayton and King, and they just gave me the print so we can get a price on it. The overall survey should be done by the end of the year.
Okay.
We had to get the initial 6 spots that was giving us real trouble, and then we released them to do the rest of it.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Questions or comments from citizens? All right, thanks, Johnny. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right.
Brian, before you move on, I just have a quick announcement, which if anyone's getting text, we were having some trouble with YouTube. It wasn't streaming until about 4 minutes in, and then the audio was a little messed up until about 7:15. All is well at this point.
Okay, thank you, Judy. All right, so we're going to move into special reports, and we are talking about our village policing assessments. So,
I can get us started.
all right, Lisa?
Okay, this is a big topic. We've been working on this for a while. Maybe it's helpful to give a little bit of a history of how we got to where we are now with a work product in progress in front of us. So back in October and then in November with some revisions of 2018 as part of the budget process, Mary Ann McQueen and I put together a proposal for a professional services budget for a police assessment, just thinking ahead that should we need to do some kind of assessment in 2019, that the budget would be there and available in the 2019 budget. So then in February of 2019, in anticipation of beginning to form the Justice System Commission, we decided to move ahead with that assessment. And the purpose of the assessment, and you know I'm a nurse, so I use all these kind of nurse terms, so was to do a head-to-toe assessment of the state of policing in Yellow Springs, and particularly thinking about the implementation of the guidelines for local policing and how much of that had been successfully implemented. We wanted to look at budget issues. We wanted to look at policies and procedures. This was not in any way about any individual, but more a state of policing. And, you know, it never is easy to take in the results of an assessment. I always think about how people don't want to go to the doctor and have lab work done because they would rather just not know if there's something wrong. So it's better to just not have that assessment done. But on the other hand, it's important to have that assessment done because if there's something that you need to attend to, it's ideal to be able to have that identified before it becomes a bigger issue. And that's really how I looked at the police assessment and the intention of having it done. So in late March, through networking, we identified Bob Wasserman and his partner Bob Haas from Hilliard Hines. These were people that have a lot of experience, even internationally, at doing police assessments, and they were engaged to do this assessment. And it's taken longer to have the results of this assessment than we had hoped that it would. I think part of that had to do with the travel schedule of the consultants. I think there may have been some health issues. I'm not entirely certain about that. But we've all been very anxious to have this, and so wanted to bring it forward in this packet, even though it's not a final document. So that's why it's marked work product in progress. We think this is a good opportunity to gain comments from council, from the staff at the police department, from the community. We hope that before we get this to final, that we can all talk together about any changes or inaccuracies that we might see in this report, about elements that we appreciate and think are particularly actionable, or things that might be missing. The other thing that I want to say, just to set this up, is that like any assessment, it's at a moment in time. And one of the challenges of how long it took for this assessment to be complete is that time of that assessment, the world has moved on. Since then, we have a new village manager. There have been a lot of changes already, programmatic implementations, policy and process change that are not reflected in the assessment. So as a consumer of this document, I keep remembering when they did their data collection, which was in April, May primarily. And I think a timeline might be something that would be helpful for the document, just to make certain that we remember when this assessment was done. So we have some asks for the council, but maybe Well, I mean, one of the things, the way the document is structured, it begins with a short summary, an executive summary, and then a list of initiatives. And then it's really long, it's like not over 90 pages. Then there's an extensive body of the document. And I think it would be helpful to keep focus tonight on that front end of the document, particularly the initiatives. And for me, and maybe for other council members, it would be helpful, Josue, to have a kind of an update on this list of initiatives and the status of any of those at this point.
And I'm ready to provide updates on the work that we've done since I've came into office. So if you want me to jump in, I can do so now.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. As you know, one of the questions that have been asked consistently since I've been attending the council meetings is where are we with our emergency management protocols and preparation for incidents? So we devoted a lot of time reviewing the policies, reviewing what documentation we have in the office around emergency management. And as a result of that, we've been putting together documentation that helps provides that information to council, and we've been reviewing policies that have been updated. So we've been doing that since day one when I joined the team. So we review policies, and they varied on the number of topics that we've been looking at, from language access issues to clergy to use of force. We've been talking about the citizen boards that we can create to address some of these issues. And there's so many more. We've also looked at our emergency management protocols. What department, what agency is responsible for what type of activity, and how will they respond? So in this package, you would see some of that emergency management planning broken out by the type of incident that would happen and what agency will respond to what activities. Now, as it relates to the police assessment, in the report, it talks about initiatives to address the police department and how to get it to a department that the consultants think that we need to be. So one of them is development of the strategic plan, performance measures, develop new policy manual that is linked to a vision that is created in the strategic plan. Then there's a piece on personnel, looking at our hiring practices, creating training and development plan for officers, shift supervision, creating a role of an operations officer, and creating substantive specialty training among officers that will be trained in a particular skill set that then could, together as a group, could respond to a wider range of circumstances. Expanding the community outreach specialist position, and as you know, we have a part-time position that is our outreach specialist. So we have some of that already taking place. There are 6 additional items: creating the policing structure, which are creating boundaries or districts in which to patrol, and officers will be assigned to those patrol areas. Addressing tensions within the police department among officers. There's been some mediated work done around that, and I think the report speaks to this general issue and that we need to address it. Some of that work is already being addressed. On item number 7 is strengthen police outreach to youth. 8, create social media presence supporting transparency. I think that we find ourselves this week in a situation where some of that social media presence is required more than it has been to provide the facts around the case. 9, creating citizen advisory and complaints committee. We've been reviewing our policies, and we've been talking about what kind of boards we can create to have that citizen input. So some of that work is underway. And then looking at a formal process for restorative justice and addressing some of our violence. So we've done a little bit of work in all of these items. I think one of the things that we're waiting to do more of was the police assessment. What is the police assessment going to say? And we see this as there's more good and positive things in this report than the negative things. This provides us a roadmap of which for us to work on. We may not agree with everything that's in there. For me, this report's the first time I'm seeing a lot of the feedback and the evaluation. So I'm taking on as family, but I hear from the officers that there's some things in the command staff that some of the items are relevant, and there are things that we need to discuss further to find the validity of those items. So in a nutshell, we've been working on the policies, specifically to address the concerns around our emergency planning, emergency management planning, and how do those policies tie into that. We've been looking at the trainings that are been scheduled, and we've scheduled additional trainings directly associated with that need to beef up our emergency management planning. So that's been in the work, and we're doing a lot of team development. And Chief Carlson's in the audience, and if there's anything I missed, please.
No, I just wanted to express that we are
Mike.
here.
Please.
Sorry.
It's all right. We just want to make sure
No, absolutely.
the
Yeah, we're
audience at home hears it all.
looking forward to the future and, you know, positive changes that we can address. I am somewhat excited that we have been working on some things to counsel, to Lisa's comment. Some of the things have been in transition, and we've reached a certain point where we'll be able to move on from that item. I'm excited about the potential of the new Justice System Commission, and I thought it was a good idea to have Corporal Charles, Sergeant Naomi Watson with me tonight, Florence, our community outreach specialist. Corporal Bean was planning on coming, but he had a head wound at the farm, and he is recovering.
Wow. So he's
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
He's okay.
Yeah.
A few
Okay.
stitches.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it's
Okay.
really helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
And the exact number of policies that are current and updated are 64, with another 41 that are scheduled for review and update if necessary.
So, I've lived in Yellow Springs almost 50 years, and I moved here while Chief McKee was chief. And anyone who's lived in town, I see there are a couple people in the room that have been, well, a couple people who grew up here, remember McKee, and a lot has been made of Chief McKee. I will say that just as I am no longer the same person I was when I was 27 years old, Yellow Springs is not the same place. And what is demanded of the police department, as well as everything else in the village government, has changed. And I think one thing that's happening is that we've been a small town, we've been able to do pretty well, and now we're in the 21st century. And we just have to make some changes. And there are a lot of good things in this report. There are a lot of errors in the report, too, I think. So Lisa and...
Grammatical errors, you mean?
Well,
Or
there
do you
are
mean other
grammatical errors, and I think there are some errors of fact or supposition.
Okay.
But that's for us to discuss. This is not clearly the only time we're going to be working with this document. I mean, this document will be something that will be a resource to us for some time to come. Today, Josue, Lisa, and I talked about how should we frame this discussion today, and then what should be the next steps. What we decided, I think, and I'm checking this out too, is that we didn't know how many people would be coming tonight. We wanted to give anyone in attendance tonight a chance to comment on the document if they've read it. We also want to let people know we want to have an extended comment period. And as either Josue or Lisa said, we probably will end up with something attached to the document that would have comments from staff, from the police department, citizens, council, not necessarily part of the document itself. So tonight, the three questions that we thought we would start off with and open it up to people who are attending tonight are, do you see anything in the document that you think is inaccurate? What do you appreciate? I mean, there were a number of points made in the document that I went, yeah, that sounds good. We could be doing that. And then are there some things missing? Those are the three things that we thought we would start off with. So we'd like to open it up first for people here, and then depending on our, we had allotted 20 minutes, and I guess we can check in and see how that's going. But we will be talking about it more, and most likely then we will also include a special meeting, maybe in October, we haven't decided, a special community meeting just dealing with this, outside of a regular council meeting. So, but for now, I'd just like to open it up. Are there any people in attendance who would
Eric?
like to comment on this assessment?
Hi there, Eric Clark. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for funding this project. That was a nice thing to have, and I have to apologize also that I only got this yesterday, and with it being the holiday, I think I was doing speed reading through this thing to see if there were issues that we had discussed at a meeting that we had had. And I think the one thing that I'm hoping can be included in there would be something that we had discussed at a meeting with Josue, is that there would be, just like the village manager has a report to council, that we would include a chief's report to council. And this could include items such as anything great going on in the department. It could be anyone who's up for a promotion, any kind of upcoming training that might be coming along, especially if we use the recommendations from the report on having officers be more engaged with certain specific topics within the village. I think that could be very helpful if we knew who was going to be handling each of these different affairs, and also which areas of the village we want to try and assign officers to get to know a little bit better. I think that those would be just nice little tidbits to have as a public record. It would help, I think, with that transparency issue. And I think that in the report, the one thing that caught me that I liked the most was a lot of ideas for having more social media input, which I think right now there's very little of. And I think especially if there was a website dedicated to being able to put immediately any, and it could be a Facebook, I guess maybe it doesn't have to be a specific website, but even a Facebook page, so that if something is obviously happening within the village, that the police would be able to just get on there, type up what it is, everyone could see it. They wouldn't even necessarily have to have commenting turned on for it. It could be just informational. And then from within that, I think that because our village is so extremely engaged in social media, that it would be a good idea if there were a couple officers or somebody who regularly just checked to make sure that the information that is being disseminated throughout the social media is accurate. And then encourage the chief or somebody to get in there and say, well, actually, this is more like what happened, or this is an evolving situation, and let's wait and see what happens before we start making too many comments about it. Just something to put that information in check and make sure that it's accurate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Any other comments?
Laura Curlis, Village of Yellow Springs resident. So this just came out, so probably a lot of people haven't really had a chance to
Yeah.
absorb it. I've only read about half, so I'll apologize in advance. So I did do a word search for Justice System Task Force, and it only came up once in the beginning as just, we interviewed some of those folks. So the 2+ years of work that the Justice System Task Force did isn't even mentioned, isn't referenced, isn't an appendage. There were specific recommendations, those are not addressed. So I was a little surprised by that, and I wasn't on it, I was on a subcommittee, but I know those folks put in a whole lot of work. I didn't see any discussion, I thought it was very, and this is what happens in general with policing in communities, is more is better. You we need to increase staff. We need an operations specialist and a this specialist, and we need subspecialties, and we need, at one time I was a prosecutor in a jurisdiction of 250,000 people, and you have to have a lot of crime to be a specialist in something like murder, for example. So we don't get enough of that, thank God. Occasionally when it happens, you do what? You bring in the specialists. We don't handle that ourselves. We don't have the equipment. We don't have any of that. So, that struck me as a big department, big community kind of recommendation. And then alternative ideas weren't explored. They were kind of mentioned here and there. But, Village of Yellow Springs has 3,500 people, more or less. There are lots and lots of villages in Ohio that don't even have their own police force at that size. So we spend a lot of money as tax-paying citizens to even have a police force. So I'm wondering if and this question has been asked before by council, is it right-sized for what we need? And then which specialties do we need? For example, I went to Mexico a couple of years ago, and in the community there was a tourist community. They had tourist police. We actually could use some tourist police for street fair. People who are part-timers who come in, that would be a specialty that would be helpful. There's some things like that that weren't explored adequately. It was all just, we need more. And of course, let's put some numbers on that. That means increase the budget a lot. Also, since I was village manager, what I perceive is the police have become more militarized, and this happens in policing in general. But part of that includes using the military structure of, okay, now we have to have corporals, now we have to have sergeants, now we have to have lieutenants, now we have to have captains. And we just keep going on and on. So I'm just suggesting maybe we look at some alternative structures for the police here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Laura. Any other comments? Okay, I have a few. So one thing, since, this is also council, the full council is just seeing this as well. Lisa and Mary Ann have been the point people on this. When this report refers to Yellow Springs' vision for policing, does that mean our guidelines for village policing?
Well, that's actually one of the
That's one of our-
concerns we have. That is our understanding, but that would be an example of an edit
Okay.
that we would need to confirm.
Because part of why I ask, so obviously, I want the report to use our language, but I got a little bit confused later on in the report when it almost seems like it was proposing creating another vision.
Yes,
and
I think it
so-
was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess, so my main comment there is, I think that work's been done, not only by council, but by the task force and by the 365 Project and a lot of other groups. So I just want to make sure that the overall report does reflect, that work.
I would agree. That's definitely a top issue. And as Laura also said, it seemed like kind of the miss of the work of the Justice System Task Force overall in the 365 project.
So another thing that occurred to me as I read through the report, which I thought was really interesting, and it reminds me of something that Judith pushed for a lot, was codifying our training and some of our other best practices. And this report, we got some pushback about that in the past, that there wasn't really any fit to do that, and how would that work? But this report seems to suggest that that is something that not only can we do, but we should do. And so I'd really like to look at that because, and this is kind of what Eric was saying too. The department should be recognized for the fact that we do 40-hour crisis intervention, team training. There are a lot of great things that we are standardized in doing. And so, I got the impression that this report was saying that that can and should be recognized. And then I guess my other, I like that we're thinking about a comment period for citizens and for council, because there are several areas where I guess I'd like to ask the Bobs, is there more detail? In particular, when I think about like, yes, of course, we need to reduce the tensions internally, but I would like to know if they have some like thoughts about how we do that, and not just, bring in a facilitator or whatever. I mean, so something a little bit more concrete around that. And there are a couple other areas like that where I guess when I make my feedback, that would be my question. Evaluations is another huge one, That's been on our radar forever, that we want to have a more robust performance evaluation system that recognizes the guidelines for village policing and rewards that behavior. So this is mentioned, but again, that's always been the kind of work that, we've asked for support in that and haven't really gotten, and maybe ultimately we just have to figure it out ourselves. But anyway, so I guess my third comment is just, I'm glad we're taking comments and seeing if we can get more specifics around some of that. That being said, I think there are some great recommendations. I think that, this has been a worthwhile activity, and it's given me definitely some food for thought. And I also think there were some observations, like Mary Ann said, some which I probably wouldn't articulate them the way they were, but other things that, did make me pause. Laura, you mentioned the militaristic thing, and that was like highlighted here. I think that's something we need to think about. And I know actually Chief has talked about like getting the kind of cool Hawaiian shirts or whatever, or something before. I mean, so I think it's good for us to be pushed and think about some of the things that we might, not always think about. So I think there are some good objective observations, as well as maybe some that are editorializing. So anyway.
Does Kevin or
Well,
Kaneda?
I guess in general, I'll say, I'm glad that the report does sort of have an overall positive or an upward trajectory in terms of the proposals. I presume we're going to be asked to give maybe some more detailed, maybe written comments, and I can reserve some of it for that. So, but again, it's echoing some of the things we've heard already, budgetary impact of some of the changes. Are we talking about additional people or just certain people taking on additional responsibilities, those types of things? So, some of the tactical details of how this would look, and certainly there's a lot of talk about starting with strategy, and then rolling that into a budget, or having a budget that reflects the strategy that you want to implement. So, again, those are, I think, questions that other folks have raised. The thing, I mentioned something about a police website months ago in a different time, a different season in policing. Because again, I know there's always good stuff going on, but the headlines were not the good stuff. So there's certainly opportunity for excellence in that regard. So again, there's certainly, I think, a positive spin on the report, and I don't mean spin in a negative way. Nobody's trying to spin it. It just came out that way. There's a lot of good things that the report suggests. I'm really excited to know that we're down the road a bit on a lot of these initiatives. So we just haven't been sitting on our hands, over the past several months or while the report's been worked on. So I would just give a thumbs up, as it were, and we'll give more detailed written comments later.
Can
I was thinking back to the idea of the models of a social justice-oriented police department, and kind of, do those models exist? Are we kind of doing something that is talked about a lot but isn't fully implemented in other places just yet? So I'd like to know more about that. From a teacher background, good teachers give models of what they want their students to do, and so it'd be really nice if we had more modeling about what this actually looks like. So I just think that would be a question for me, is do we have, municipalities that are even trying to do something similar, even if it's not exactly the same? Because I think that we have a lot of models of what is considered community policing, and that's all different. It all looks very different depending on where you are and depending on which officer you're talking to. So it'd be nice to have some more models of what a municipality who says, look, we're going to do social justice-oriented policing, and these are our steps to do that. I think that's really important, especially if those models do exist.
All right, thanks, Ganetta. Mary Ann?
Do you have anything?
Go ahead. I have a few, but you may probably say the same.
Well, and the report is 48 pages, I think.
Right.
Yeah. There are some things that I'd like to see different in the report, and some people out there and in here have mentioned some of those things. The one thing that comes to mind right now that I think I don't think we've done, and I do think it would be good to figure it out, is how there is that partnership with the community. If there's going to be a change in the police practice, how does the community get engaged with that? They talk about that a lot in the report, and that seems to be a pretty different shift, I think. So, in fact, maybe that is some of the kind of practical information that we would want to get. How do you set up that kind of relationship? So chief says, hey, we're thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. How does that go to the community and get feedback? How do we create something like that? That's all I have to say right now.
Okay, Lisa?
I think that, like you, I haven't had time even to fully digest this. So I do hope that it's on the agenda again, and then maybe we'll have more people who've read it that can come and share public comment. And then I think we also need a mechanism for people to, email us, maybe to Judy, to share comments, and those could be made anonymous. Judy could anonymize those. Josue and Marianne and I talked today, as Marianne mentioned, about by the time the document was final, it would have these sort of 3 other documents that went along with it, because, this is going to be an important document just for, to set in time, and so that we can begin to use it to inform strategy, but not get too stuck in the mechanics of the document, because we could all spend a lot of time editing this document, but maybe that's not the most productive thing that we can do, and what we want to be is action-oriented. So the idea that there would be 3, merged comments, the comments of council, the comments of the, administration, that would include the police department staff, and comments from the community, and that all of that would be taken as a whole to decide what strategies to put in place and how to prioritize them. Something that I would want to do, I think this guidelines for local policing document holds up. And, when I start to think about it, these initiatives do map somewhat to the categories of this: safety-centered, resolution-oriented, demonstratively inclusive, and locally minded. So I do think, although the Hilliard-Hines team didn't structure the document that way, I think that it would be interesting to look at how those initiatives map to this, because a struggle that we've had since developing these excellent guidelines is like, well, yeah, here they are on paper, but how do you bring them to life? So maybe we can say some of these initiatives will help bring this to life. So the other thing I've been thinking about a lot, the word transparency, because to me the word transparency has this implication that something's being dropped that you can't see through, and that the intention of that is to block. And what my experience has been, and as I actually read the document, is that I don't see them suggesting that anything is being hidden, but that instead communication is not sufficiently proactive. And I think those are two different things, the intention to hide versus the intention to be very, very open, as Eric was suggesting, some of those ways of using social media. So those are a couple of things that I've already started to think about with the document.
Yeah, it's kind of a excellent transition into what we're going to talk about
Yeah.
next. But do you guys have any other comments about the assessment? Anything from citizens that you want to weigh in on, Laura?
I wanted to comment on social media. You know, it's really tough for police departments to do social media because you can't say too much for investigatory reasons, and also because people have constitutional rights to be presumed innocent, proven guilty, and other constitutional rights. So you might be able to do some things. I think it's very, very tough to do it well, and it'll be unsatisfactory to a lot of citizens. I mean, yeah, you might put out alert. We've had break-ins in cars on North Winter Street. Okay, that's good. But if you start to say, well, we think so-and-so did it, well, that starts to get into problem area. So it's almost like you need somebody at the commander level to review every post that goes out. You really do. So anyway, I just say it's not
Yeah,
as easy.
it's not
I
easy.
feel it's not as easy as this guy made it seem
Right.
like it is.
Right. None of it is.
No.
But, you know, I want to, I guess, transition us into citizen concerns, and, because I think it is related to this topic, and I really appreciate that Lisa highlighted the open value, which is actually, for those of you that have paid attention, the village has adopted this Corkle set of 6 values, and the O in Corkle is to be more open. And, you know, I want to start by saying I'm really happy about the press release that Chief put out, and I know Josue was a part of that, because that is, to me, a real sign that we are embracing that value. We want to be direct, we don't want to be defensive, transparency is key. So the other thing that I thought a lot about, especially given what's you know, happened over the last week, is the part of the report or the assessment that talks about that balance between discretion and policy. And one of the things that I think we need to really think a lot about is when we establish policies, you know, that, I mean, policy is great. You know, like hotels love to have policies. If you don't like cancel and 3 days before, we're going to charge you, whatever. You know, it's easy to follow policy. But the impacts of those fixed policies can be really detrimental. And so I know some people are here with you know, the situation in mind. And so I do want to hand it over to Josue to give that update that Mary Ann asked for. But I mean, ultimately to me, the biggest takeaway when I thought about this assessment is how do we strike that balance where common sense and scenario testing and some of those other things come into play, because ultimately we have a commitment, and I actually had Judy print it out when we passed our resolution about being a welcoming community and how we are protecting all of our residents and all of our citizens. We need to make sure that we're delivering on that in every policy that we have, and whether that's our police department or our village policies or the pool or whatever. And, you know, I think this is something that I almost want to read it again, but, you know, it's a really powerful statement that we are committed to, and we have to think very carefully whenever we lay down, you know, a policy, which, again, seems to make sense and is easy to follow, but can have some unintended consequences. So, Josue.
Thank you, Brian. I know that most of us probably seen the public statement that we made, but I would like to read it because it provides a good summary of what the facts are and what took place and what we've done, and looking into the future, what we can do, and addresses your point. So, on August 26th, local resident Miguel Espinosa was taken to the Greene County Jail for driving suspension violations and no operator license, where he was held and subsequently transported to the Butler County Jail relating to a detainer from Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Current police protocol instructs our officers to take repeat offenders of these particular offenses to the Greene County Jail as an effort to change the behavior. We are saddened by the unintended consequences of our protocol on Mr. Espinosa. We as a municipal government and police department must face the reality of the catastrophic damage that our actions can have, particularly on our vulnerable populations. As a result of this incident, we are reviewing our protocols, guidelines, and policies to find a better solution that meets our legal requirements, ensures public safety and well-being of the community, and is sensitive to the dynamics of vulnerable populations. The Yellow Springs Police Department will continue to explore ways to protect every person we encounter. So this covers some of the basics of why Miguel Espinosa was taken to Greene County Jail, that there was a repeat offender for driving without a license. And our current policy states that this is what our protocol will be, that we would do this action. So that's where we are. Since then, as you know, I've attended a meeting with the community. Meeting took place at Rockville Chapel. I think it was referenced or published in, there was a post on Facebook. There were around 60 people there. So it was a good turnout. We did review some of the incidents that led up to it. Why did this happen? But a lot of the conversation was, all right, what do we do now? How do we help a local resident who has demonstrated to have deep roots in our community, runs a business, employs local residents, is raising a family in Yellow Springs, and he is part of the vibrancy of Yellow Springs. And how do we help that individual? And not to dismiss what he has done or hasn't done, but it's forward thinking. What is next? How do we help the individual? So that was part of the discussion at Rockford Chapel. There was a organized effort to get reference letters to the immigration attorney. I know the chief submitted one, I've submitted one, I know the clerk submitted one. A lot of folks that knew Miguel and had an interaction with Miguel submitted a reference letter. And this is an effort to expedite or secure that there is a bond hearing so that he is out and is able to work through the court system in his case. That's what's happened on our end. We're looking at what we can do with our protocols and guidelines. What else could we do differently? And this goes to your point that you could put in a policy and you think it's going to work well on most circumstances, and most circumstances it would, but there are times where it won't and it would fail. And how do we move beyond that? What's next?
Well, and in this case, and I don't know if this is what you were referring to, but we have instructed, I think, our officers not to ask about citizenship status.
Correct.
That's what they've been instructed to do. In this case, had that information been known, and had the information been known about what Greene County does, then it might have taken a different course.
And it would have probably been in contradiction to the spirit of the resolution to ask.
Yes.
However,
yes, so
knowing
all these dilemmas.
Right. I think there are two things there. One, we have to be aware of Yellow Springs and where it coexists in Greene County, that we are in a conservative county. Certainly, by comparison, Greene County is much more, it's very conservative compared to Yellow Springs. Not just now, but historically. Yellow Springs has a very progressive history, and we have to recognize that Yellow Springs is operating in a political climate that doesn't reflect the Yellow Springs values, and the county has different practices than our own. So I think that's one thing that we have to be sensitive of, particularly in light of this policy. If we don't ask, we say, well, we don't care about those things, right? We're blind to legal status, but then executing our protocols will have this unintended consequence because we ourselves are too small to do everything for ourselves. We're relying on these partnerships, the county jail, the Xenia court, to do things with us and for us, and they don't share the same culture values as we do.
I'd also like to say that we are relying on our police department to help keep us safe. And part of that is ensuring that people aren't driving when they shouldn't be driving. For example, if they've had their license taken away, for example, for being intoxicated while driving. We don't want that on our street. So, and that's part of what our police department was doing. Now, the consequence, as you say, as it went through the different levels, was not what we would wish. But there's a responsibility, I think, not just the village, but the responsibility of the people who are driving the cars.
Other comments from council members? So this is citizen concerns. I would say anyone that wants to comment on this topic, we should address those first, and then if there are other comments, Laura, you look like you're ready to say
Yeah.
something.
So Lisa was in on this meeting that we had with the police when the Justice System Task Force Subcommittee, Mayor's Court Subcommittee met, and we were trying to hash out, everything that can go to Mayor's Court should go to Mayor's Court, and let the mayor decide. I mean, the mayor is the judge. The mayor, that's why we elect the mayor, that's who should decide. And we didn't get down, and this is kind of where the work, it gets frustrating, because we now have a protocol. This is the first time I've heard about a protocol, that there's some kind of written protocol that says even if it is a nonviolent offense that the judge could hear, the mayor could hear, that we're giving the police discretion to who they haul to Greene County Jail and who they don't. It's like imposing a punishment. It's really a punishment because they're making a decision. This person is so bad, Brian, you drove 3 times on a suspended license. We're going to decide that you get to go have a cooling off time in the jail. And too bad for you, you also have a detainer. Now, so on these, everything that can go to Mayor's Court should go to Mayor's Court so that the mayors decide. That's the judge. And people have rights. Like the mayor would have advised Mr. Espinoza, if you plead guilty, it could affect your immigration status, blah, blah, blah. He would have been advised of his rights. I'm sure he wasn't advised of his rights out there on the street. So this is why we need to bring people into Mayor's Court and why we pay for it. We pay a pretty penny as citizens for that Mayor's Court. We need to take full advantage of it. And so, and that's, I guess, that was one of the pleas from the Justice System Task Force that happened. All right. The other thing you might consider, there is, obviously it's political. The Greene County Sheriff has some kind of agreement with the Butler County Sheriff to put immigrants in jail. And when I was a prosecutor, and at one time I called ICE on one case. It was somebody from a country in Africa who attempted to kill somebody else. And I called ICE, this was back at literally the turn of the century, like 1999. And they couldn't be bothered to come get him back then. That was on attempted murder. And here, they're coming to pick him up on driving on a suspended license. But my question for you, where council can have some impact, is maybe write a letter to the sheriff and say, because I bet Greene County is paying for that bedtime over there in Butler County, that do not pay for it on our behalf. It's our prisoner. You took it, I bet the feds aren't paying for it. So you could say that, we do not. Now, the sheriff can spend the money the way it wants, but you can make a political statement. At this point, I certainly don't have any other ideas what to do other than we need to drill down on I guess we have to get citizen and council involvement, drilling down on the protocol and do role playing. Scenario playing, scenario training. Okay, officer, you 3-time, Brian House, 3rd time on his DUS, driving under suspension. What do you do? Cite him into Mayor's Court, if there's a so that we got to get down to that level, apparently, to implement the kind of policing we want. I really think we do. You hate to say that, but we really do. Thank you.
Yes, and
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. I want to respond to your statement about the mayor's court and reasons why some items are ineligible. Right now, we're issuing a report on a monthly basis on what cases aren't sent to or not sent to the mayor's court. And a lot of those items that are not sent to the mayor's court is because they are a second offense and enhancement.
And what?
Enhancements. there are other things associated with, well, with a charge. But typically, a lot of those would be repeat offenders. And those are the things that we're reviewing.
Mayor can handle repeat.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? All right, I think I am going to read from this resolution, because I want everybody to be clear on what our policy is and what we've committed to. So this was the resolution we passed last year, 2018-42, affirming the Village of Yellow Springs as a welcoming community for all persons regardless of country of origin, ethnicity, age, gender identity, sexual orientation, income, ability, political affiliation, or religion. So I'm just going to go down to the therefores. Section 1, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs supports and encourages local and regional efforts to welcome and offer sanctuary to immigrants and others who are being targeted on the basis of religion, nationality, culture, gender identity, race, or citizenship status. Section 2, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs is committed to the protection of law-abiding village residents and visitors from abuse, harassment, and harm, regardless of their immigration or refugee status. Section 3, Council for the Village of Yellow Springs directs that no village department may use village funds, equipment, or personnel for the sole purpose of detecting or apprehending persons based suspected immigration status unless in response to a court order. In furtherance of this policy, no village office or employee shall request information about or otherwise investigate or assist in the investigation of a person's immigration status unless a criminal warrant exists, a criminal violation was reported, or an arrest was made. And Section 4, no village department or employee shall deny equal access to village services based on immigration status unless required by law or court order. Such denial of access shall include, but not be limited to, soliciting immigration status in any application for village services, predicating the provision of services on the immigration status of any person, or delaying the provision of services based solely on immigration status. And then finally, it shall be the policy of the Village of Yellow Springs to vigorously oppose any effort to require the use of local taxpayer resources for the enforcement of federal immigration policy. So that tells me two things. One is we made a strong statement about what our policies are. We've got to, do that scenario testing that, I mentioned, that Laura mentioned. And secondly, I agree with Mary Ann. I'm seeing some conflicts in this that maybe also need to be resolved in terms of how do we assess that information so that we make the right decisions about immigration status or whatnot. I don't think we know enough yet. I mean, we've got to learn more. And I believe that's what Chief and the police team and Josue are going to do.
Right.
All right. Any other citizen concerns? Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move into old business. And the first thing we've got is the ballot initiative update. And Judy, I'm going to let you handle that because you prepared some documents on that.
You sprung that right on me before I found it in here.
See, I like to keep you on your toes.
The long story short, they held the
We're
hearing,
excited.
and, basically, the solicitor's argument about the village being a charter community and having the right to make this decision held water, at least insofar as the Board of Elections did not want to be named in a lawsuit and felt that the decision should happen further up the chain. And so they went ahead and approved as to form. So what you see in the packet has been, it is what will appear on the ballot exactly as you see it in the packet. So I was, any education that anyone wants to do around that, either issue, this is what the ballot will look like. It doesn't preclude a challenge further down the road if the Secretary of State decides they want to challenge home rule power, but that's not our concern at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's, Josue, do you want to note what the Board of Elections kind of highlighted in their hearing? Because I think that's of interest.
Yes, I think that there were some comments by members of the election board to move the conversation to talk about the social policy issues, and I'm glad that there were two individuals that could steer the conversation back to what falls within their purview, and that being, is this an action that has it been done correctly? Does it meet all the administrative requirements to come before the election board to approve or deny? And there are two individuals that stir the conversation in that direction, and that ultimately is how they were able to move forward on this. There were folks that were looking to bring in, or they introduced a topic in a discussion that was not presented to them. They were concerned about, well, what do 16-year-olds know? Or this non-citizen question. And they're not in the packet. All their legal requirement was just to ensure that this was brought before them in a proper manner and that it met the legal standards. So I'm glad those two individuals were able to move the conversation along and keep the body focused on what their role is and not to meddle on what Yellow Springs wants to do on other things.
And I think that's kind of what I'm excited about, regardless of how you feel about whether 16 and 17-year-olds and non-U.S. citizen residents should have the privilege to vote or not. What was important in the victory that we secured was the guarantee of home rule, and that's why it's important that this made it to the ballot, because if, that's how Ohio, as well as 20 other states, are set up, that localities should be able to have local control. And if this is something that our citizens decide is the right fit, that we should have inclusivity around voting, then we should be able to do that. So we'll see what happens in November. And I expect, as Judy said, that there will be some education around this. It's kind of interesting how several topics tonight are kind of converging. But I think I was really happy that Judy, Josue, and Chris made the case for, again, why this is under our home rule powers. And they should not be talking about their opinions about how they feel about who should and shouldn't vote. Okay? Any questions? All right.
Brian?
Yes. Oh, Megan, yes. Sorry.
Legal permanent residents or just all residents?
So, yeah, so basically, the charter amendment, if passed, would be if you are a resident of Yellow Springs. I think in practicality, and one thing that I believe was highlighted to the Board of Education was, Board of Elections, is if you do not have legal status, I think it's very doubtful that you would go to the Board of Elections to register for an election. So I think de facto, it would end up being people that are legal non-U.S. citizens, green cards or whatnot. But the reality is, our amendment is saying any resident of Yellow Springs that's 16 or older would be able to vote in municipal elections. Okay?
Well, and I left this out, and just to follow up, there was some concern raised about potential cost to the Board of Election and how it would be handled procedurally, and I would like to give a shout out to Lynn McCoy, who handled those things fabulously and simply kept saying, that's our responsibility to figure out, and we will figure it out. And so it may be that there is some small cost to give those persons paper ballots. It certainly wouldn't be anything substantial, and the process is not yet figured out, but it will be.
The only thing I'd like to chime in with, it's probably not for tonight, but I do think there needs to be a nice communication strategy, a comprehensive communication strategy. I do think, and I think this was suggested in a prior meeting, that we formalize some outreach to the schools, and that, council members or people who are supportive of this would actually go to the schools and visit the classrooms and talk about this as a civics
Right.
important thing, because I think, that's probably the best way. But, so I don't know when we're going to do that communication strategy or who's on point for that.
Yeah. So there is, because we cannot advocate for the charter amendment as elected officials. We can put it on the ballot, but there is a citizen committee that's forming to inform the public about that. And regarding the education piece, Mayor Canine is already committed to being part of that education, which I think all of us should be as well. I mean, makes a lot of sense.
Is it
Education
possible?
for whom?
For the students. So assuming that, they get to vote, that they would be educated on local issues.
Oh,
Yeah.
But we can talk about the village council and our role on the village council and why it would us talking about why, as council, we thought this was important, be construed as advocating for it?
No, we can give information.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think it's important, if we're moving in this direction, for the youth and the community to have a better understanding of the structure of our government and the role of an elected official. And, so I wasn't saying like, go out and say like, vote for it, and also vote for Krieger. I was really just saying
Yeah.
that we would be out there,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and we can definitely, we can always inform. We can't spend taxpayer dollars to, put together a pro campaign on this charter amendment,
Okay.
so. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So I saw Mark walked in. Perfect timing, because you're next on the agenda. Vernay update.
I'm Mark Ewald, part of the Environmental Commission, and on the Vernay Cleanup Subcommittee of the Commission. Quick update about the Vernay cleanup process. We're in another round of cleanup plans and revisions and comment period. And the Vernay's contractors have designed a cleanup plan, and now it's our turn to look it over and review it and comment on it. The EPA is scheduled two meetings with Yellow Springs in October. Date is yet to be determined in time. But one meeting is a private meeting with village government and staff and the EPA. And that one will be a dialogue conversation, and we'll be able to ask questions back and forth with the US EPA. And the second meeting is a public meeting, open to the public, and it's going to be more one-directional, informational from the US EPA. To prepare for the first private meeting, our subcommittee is gathering documents, and we're going to send out those documents with like a summary, executive summary, so the meeting participants can be advised and know how to ask like higher level questions, semi-technical questions. For this preparation of this meeting, we recruited help from two professors, Denise Taylor of UD. She's an environmental engineering professor. She's going to help write an executive summary for the meeting participants of like who, what, where, why, and where are we now, what's some of the major risks for the public in the village, so that you can just read this one pager or 1.5 pager instead of having to dig through 400 pages and get lost and things. The second technical expert that we recruited is named Abhinesh Agrawal from Wright State. He works in the environmental, something to do with the environmental department. He teaches about remediation, and he teaches classes and the students on how to remediate sites like this. We asked him to provide more technical comments, technical questions. Are we missing anything? And more as like a technical expert. So we're going to be, our subcommittee is going to continue to work to plan for these meetings, and we're going to send a meeting invite out via Hostway to probably you and Mary Ann, Brian. and also Johnny and the guy, the head of the water department. Anything else this way?
I think there's a new meeting that's being scheduled, one with the residents that we just became aware about. So now there would be third meeting. Nothing for us to be
Yeah.
involved, but just so that you know that there is another meeting that would take place between the EPA and the
And the-
residents.
So I understand is that the
So the
EPA
neighbor-
wants to meet with all of the like active parties.
Active
Gotcha.
parties.
You know, one being the village,
Mhm.
one being the general public, and one being the citizen group in
Mhm.
Omar Circle.
Right.
Mhm.
And the citizen group has their own lawyer and technical expert on hand, and so they want, the EPA wants comments from all of the active parties.
And then on a timeline, the comments will be due at sometime early part of next year. So they would not be, they're not expected in this October meeting. This is more of an orientation of
Yeah.
what's going on, providing an overview of what's in the works in terms of what documents have been provided to them and what does this comment period look like. So then it stretches into 2020.
So is somebody paying Taylor and Agarwal, or are they doing this
This is
pro
on
bono?
volunteers, so
Volunteer.
they're, so as part of like a tenured faculty, you do teaching, service,
Mhm.
research, right? And so this is probably falling in their service bucket.
So if I understand correctly, that they're potentially helping the village team prepare, I guess one thing I'd be curious about is if there's a way to kind of have a pre-meeting with them to talk about their executive summary and maybe make sure that we have it straight. You know, so if in fact it is Josue and Marianne and I or whatever. So I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but I would like to have that opportunity
Yeah,
to just kind of make sure we fully get it.
okay. Yeah, that's a possibility.
Yes, I think we can arrange for that, so.
I mean, it could be a phone meeting or whatever, you know?
Right. We thought about the orientation being this, an opportunity to bring everyone to the same level of shared understanding of what's happening and
Right.
what's the information that's on all these documents. And it's dense. There's things in here that are very complex, and we're trying to get it down to the essence. What is it that we as a government, as key stakeholders need to know? What do we need to know about decontamination, the technology that's being employed? And this is one of the things that I really appreciate about the two consultants, the free consultants that we have, is they have a different approach to the work, and they're still, they come to an agreement on to what are the things that we should be looking at, but they have a different approach, and we're getting the benefit of having these two different
Different from each
perspectives.
other.
Different from each other,
Uh-huh.
correct.
So, this month, the subcommittee has another meeting, that's Tom, Dietrich, Nadia, and I, and probably Josue, and we're gonna have, what's her name, Mayor? The representative from the citizen group.
Marcia
Marcia.
Walgren?
So we'll meet, the five of us will meet again, to prepare for the, for the October meetings. And we also have a regular monthly environmental commission meeting too. So there's possibly two, and then this third meeting that you suggested before the October meetings.
And Mark and Tom have gone to great lengths of collecting all the documents, creating a README file or list of files of what's in each document and what they relate to.
Yeah, and they're like sorted on who's the author, when was it published, who wrote it, to whom, and, some of them are 200 pages long, some are like page and a half. So we don't expect all these meeting participants to read everything, but we want them to be able to ask a higher level question or a semi-technical question.
I'd like to make sure I understand. So the first things that our two consultants are doing are helping us ask intelligent questions when we meet with the EPA.
Yeah.
Then are they also going to work with us to write a letter after that, after October, to the EPA with the things that we now believe should be done for the cleanup?
Yeah, so the comment period for the plan is open in the springtime,
Okay.
and so we have time to prepare comments, and I'm sure we ask them, and they'll help us, draft comments.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks a
Very
lot, Mark.
helpful.
Are we going over this again in the village manager report, or is that already been done?
No, I don't,
No,
I
this
think-
is it, yeah.
you,
Thank
you can leave.
Feel happy to
You only
stay.
have to do that once.
All right, thanks again, Mark. Yeah, we appreciate the work. Gosh, I would love to get that brownfield cleaned up. Okay, we're on to new business, and Kevin, I think this first one is you talking about an opt-out for the utility roundup program.
So first of all, let me say that I am in agreement with staff, Josue, the folks, ladies work downstairs, and everyone else on the utility roundup subcommittee, that right, for the time being, we're going to not lobby for opt-out, but keep the program as opt-in. Early on, I and when Lisa was working with us, was a proponent for the program being opt-out. And what that means is everyone would be put into the utility roundup program, and then if you did not want to be in the program, you could opt out. With strong reservations coming from the staff, they wanted to keep it as an opt-in program and just inform people about it and let them get in as they desire to do so. So I think having this item on the agenda, well, I know having this item on the agenda came out of an earlier meeting because there's been some internal conversations about it. Mary Ann thought we should make more of a public discussion about it. The tides shifted, as it were. The staff got more involved with encouraging folks to opt into the program. They're talking to residents at the window downstairs. The form that everyone has to sign to create a new utility account has been modified, giving folks the option to opt into the program, and Colleen and her staff have been advocating for that. Just this past Saturday, unless I missed a weekend, maybe some recent farmer's market, Colleen was there, still waiting for my water bottle. But, okay. But, right, no, thank you. Inside joke, I'm sorry. So they did a great job. Later this month, there'll be another Thirsty Thursday at the brewery to raise funds. Everyone who's gotten a bill this month or last week when they showed up, you see a little insert that was in there advising and educating, informing what the Utility Roundup program is. We're talking about putting a banner over Xenia Avenue. Also, I don't know if you checked email, but I sent you an email recently thinking about maybe reconsidering what we're doing with the grant funds. Maybe not the Vectren grant. We can talk about that offline. I don't want to get into details here. But fact of the matter is, the program will remain opt-in. Now, Colleen, a few weeks ago, gave us some numbers, and the question we were trying to answer is, in order for the Utility Roundup program to be self-sustaining, in other words, we don't need more donations, more grants from the Community Foundation or other outside entities, at what rate, what percentage of the residential households need to be signed up to the program? The subcommittee thought 50% was a good target. Really, for it to be sustainable, I think it needs to be closer to 60 or 70%. We can sort of debate that. But we don't have a lot of history on how many households need to be served, and we got through the last winter and so far this summer, and we've been able to serve all the households that have applied for grants. Again, thanks to the donations that folks have made and to the Community Foundation grant. So as we move down the road and we don't have the opportunity to get more grants, again, the question that needs to be answered is what percentage of the residents need to be signed up for it to remain sustainable? Certainly, it is my estimation that if we did go to opt-out, that we probably get to that number quicker, but probably at a social and political cost. So we're not going to do it. So we are making strides. I don't know what the percentage is right now, but I'm not going to worry about it. We will stick with what we're doing. We'll keep the campaign positive. We'll ask people, we'll encourage people. My household is signed up, and we're doing an extra $5 each month. You too can do the same. You can do an additional $20 a month if you want to, or whatever amount. And again, so in all seriousness, we are trying to make the program sustainable. So there have been a couple of communications, a couple of letters. Again, I think folks saw the opt-out discussion on the agenda, thinking we were going to talk about that's what we wanted to do. That is months ago how the discussion began, but since then, again, staff has really stepped up and taken ownership of this thing. So they're running with the ball. So from my perspective, as a member of the subcommittee, I'm stepping back and just allowing them to do their work. They're doing great work. The numbers are going up, and there's no need to panic at this point. So that's all I have to say about that.
Kevin, I have a question.
Sure, you want to come up to the mic?
Yeah, if you don't mind coming up, Mark.
I think Oberlin has a round-up program, right?
They do.
Have you asked them how many residents they have to be sustainable? That
Well-
might be a good reference point.
So yes, and yes. They have, and we haven't gotten this one question answered, they have made large donations to the program. The city of Oberlin has. And we have not gotten the answers to the question in terms of where those funds have come from. But it's not self-sustained just through resident donations. And their program, by the way, is opt-out. So they put everyone in, and then folks that wanted to get out, opt out. We don't have all the numbers. I don't know, Colleen, if you have if we've ever got those questions answered from Oberlin, I don't think we did. But they are doing things differently than what we're doing, because they're putting money in, and I don't know that we have the wherewithal or that special fund to do that. Because if we did it right now, it would be citizen money. It'd be your money. But instead of us deciding to put your money in there, we're asking you to put your money in by signing up.
All I'm doing is asking to make sure you ask Oberlin.
Yeah, we have been in communication with Oberlin, but there are some questions about where that money came from that we don't know the answer to. Colleen, did you want to add anything?
I think the printout that I had from Oberlin was they started out every resident as an opt-out. But as they signed up and gave them that decision, so it really is an opt-in at that point. They didn't, but I'll research. The copy that I had, they were an opt-in, and they were larger, so they did have more funds.
Yeah. So they have more money as a municipality to put into the fund. So they certainly are putting money in that we've chosen not to, but we want to share the love, share the wealth, and let as many as are able to do it. And if you sign up for the program and don't do anything additionally, on average, you're only going to donate $6 a year. Because on average, each month, your contribution would be between 0 and 99 cents. So on average, 50 cents per month, that's $6 a year. So we're really not asking for a lot. It's not a big reach. Colleen, you want to come in?
And just as a really good comment, it has grown, and it is the efforts of everybody and the word of mouth that is going around. And at the farmer's market, everybody that I talked to, other than that were residents, already knew about it, and we had a couple more signups. So it's just been a great program, and I thank you for getting that started last year, and we're hoping to keep it motivated and growing.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, Colleen. I mean, I guess I just want to make sure that any other council members that want to weigh in, I mean, personally, I support the opt-in and, put our energies towards information strategy, but I don't know if, Lisa, did you have any?
Well, I mean, when I came into council, this had been on the table, hadn't come to life. It was a significant amount of work to get it going. It's now continued to be a lot of work, a lot of volunteer hours, and I'm really appreciative of that. I would want this topic to come up before the program, if and when it looks like the program is failing. I want to bring it up again, because I do feel like you've made a unilateral statement that we're not, of how it's going to be, and I don't necessarily agree. I agree with right now, it's growing, and I really respect, your perspective and the recommendation from staff. And I also know that anybody I've talked to who has said no, has said no on principle. They're wealthy people. They say no on principle of giving $11.88 a year maximum to help other community members in need. Okay. So I am concerned about the program, and I'm very grateful for the growth, and I don't want it to go down. And I'm not saying it is, but before that happens, I want this back on the table. And I mean, I'm willing to take the political flack for $11.88. So I'll hold off for now.
So with the unilateral statement was that I, as a member of the subcommittee and a member of council, am not pushing for opt-out, period. And so the committee is handling, how it's done, and the committee will decide how it's done, and right now, we're...
No. I think council gets to decide.
Well, does it...
Frankly, I mean, I read Josue's report. I read the letter that Patty Bates sent. I actually thought we should do opt-out.
Right.
But I read what both reports said, and so I said, okay, and, we've talked about this probably for 10 minutes now, so I think we can move on.
Yep.
But to me, it does seem like it should be a council decision, not,
Understood, so I'll moderate my comments, but certainly at the advice of the committee, we'll make a decision. And
Yeah.
right now, that advice is advising, I think, to stay with the opt-in.
yeah, I'll go
So
along
that
with
is where we are.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're all good with that for now. Did you want to add anything, Kanetta, or?
My only thought was for an opt-out system to give a time period for people to opt out before it hits their bill. And that for the folks who are
that's a good idea.
opting out or saying that they won't do it on principle, just to let them know that they can put in more than just the roundup amount, that they can donate as much as they want. And I mean, seriously, if they're like, well, I just think that $11.88 is too low, you can always donate more per bill. So that was just my thought process.
And I'll say this last point. We can only budget, if you will, the number of folks that are in, if we know how many households are in, on average, the max is $11.88, but on average, it's going to be $6 every year. We can only count those heads in terms of the number of households that are signed up. It is the extra cash donations that you can't count on, but those are large, they are coming in. And I don't know where the breakdown is in terms of how much is actually the round up to the nearest whole dollar versus the extra cash, but there's a lot of folks who are doing additional donations. Folks are just dropping by the bucket or during the reach outs or the outreaches that we have, folks are just giving more money. So, I mean, you can't guess what that's going to be, but that's been very positive. And I think that's to Colleen's point. The funds are growing. So again, yes, we've talked a lot about it, so ready to move on.
All right, thank you. All right, so I guess the next topic is also yours, House Bill 229, Kevin?
All right, I don't I like short meetings, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about this, but there's an Ohio House Bill 229 that that's a modification to the existing fair housing law here in the state that effectively says, it's strengthening the language saying that landlords cannot deny potential renters access to their properties based on source of income. The bill right now is in committee, and they probably won't take it up again until later this month at the soonest. But I'd like for council to consider maybe a resolution or some other statement in support of that, if we indeed are in support of that. I don't know that anything will happen in the near term, but the fact of the matter is, it's my understanding that some potential residents in the village have been turned away from opportunities to rent properties when they are carrying a Section 8 voucher. And so Section 8 voucher, Section 8 is just one of the forms of income that might be discriminated against. And this House Bill 229, again, strengthens the language to talk about the illegality, if you will, of denying residents the opportunity to apply those vouchers to a rental situation. So again, I'd like for us to learn more about it, but consider
So will
making
you
some
do
statement.
that? Will you stay on top of that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, I mean, I think to move forward with this, we should have the bill in our packet so we can read it. And then, I mean, this sounds like something that I think we would all be in support of. So, you know, one option is if you want to start to draft a resolution, Judy's got a template that, you know, you could build that. I mean, it seems like well within the, you know, our values, so. So that's what I would recommend, and then, you know, we could look at it at the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay?
I will do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Well,
Oh,
I think that the main reason why people have problems with Section 8 vouchers in Yellow Springs is the cost of the rent, because the vouchers will only pay for a certain amount. Frequently, rent in Yellow Springs is higher than that amount. And rent is frequently higher because the landlords are paying higher property taxes. So I don't know what percentage that is, but I know that that is an issue.
Well, in my experience with managing properties in Montgomery County that are on Section 8, you know, the amount of rent that the county considers supporting is based on market rate. You know, so regardless of what, you know, how high things are, you know, in West Dayton, properties that I'm familiar with, properties are renting for $650, $700, and they are supported by Montgomery County, Dayton and Montgomery County for Section 8 vouchers. So
Kaneda, do you know?
I don't know, I don't have any particular experience with market rate in Yellow Springs being supported by Section 8, but I know of new apartment buildings in Yellow Springs being supported by Section 8 and being able to accept the voucher. So I think it's really a case-by-case basis, but from my understanding, it does go by the market.
Yeah. And I can definitely say historically, and, you know, maybe it's gotten better, but Yellow Springs has been very limited in terms of Section 8 options, so. Yeah, I know firsthand, when I first moved to town and didn't have a job, yeah, there were basically no Section 8 options, so.
Well, a voucher is something you take with you.
No, I know,
it's
but
not-
I had that voucher, but
Oh.
had no opportunity to use it. So, so I don't know if it's changed, but historically, it's been a problem in our community, so.
we will
Okay.
Okay.
We will discuss that. We will move forward.
Sounds
So
good.
yes, I'll do the draft resolution, and I think in an email that I sent to Judy a few weeks ago, there was a link to the bill, but I'll get a complete,
The link actually did not work, so if that's the correct one, I think I popped it back and said the link wasn't working, so.
okay, well, I've read it, and I'll get it to you.
Cool.
Okay?
Okay, so, commission effectiveness, Lisa and Mary Ann.
I'll start. So, I've been keeping track of, 2 new commissions and possibly, the, active transportation, right?
Yep.
And the Justice Commission. And then also what I hope that we have a citizen advisory board to the police. That's something that has been on the table since October of 2018. That was then supported by the police assessment. So that's 3, right? And so I would really like to try to find a good chunk of time for us all to talk about commission effectiveness. And I'd like to have it be in a manner that engages the commissions as well, not just our opinions, but the commission members, with this idea of what's working, what's not, could the commission be changed to a meet when needed, and, what other ideas do commission members have about changes? Mary Ann and I spoke about this today, and both of us have experience with other organizations and research that says that, it's difficult to engage younger people with families, and what they are interested in is episodic involvement in meaningful work. In other words, don't just sign up for something once a month for the rest of your natural-born life, right? So what do you really care about? Let's pull together a group of people and act on it and celebrate accomplishment and then disband. Now, if the same people want to come together around a particular topic, that would be fine. But, I just think maybe it's time for us to talk about and look at a better way to address needs that come and go, and a better way to use the incredibly talented resources that we have in our community that have very deep expertise on different topics, but do not maybe have the time to commit to a commission. What I'd like to do, I think Mary Ann said she'd work on this with me, is for the next meeting, come up with a real simple template that could be dispersed to the commissions that are just those questions: what's working, what's not, could it be changed? I think I would, and then have each council person agree to facilitate that conversation with their commission, put it in writing, and submit it back in for review. I think that we need to be open to maybe reconfiguring dramatically the commissions, maybe combining some. And the thing that I've been talking to myself about is perhaps collapsing a commission. It's not a failure. It doesn't mean the commission didn't work or anything like that. It just means that times have changed and we're maybe going into another direction. And the other thing is, we know we have too many plates spinning, each of us individually and collectively. And I really think that it's time for us to focus in and identify a more focused group of activities, and the commissions should follow along with that. So,
Which we've technically done,
well,
with our retreat.
with
and,
3 more coming online, we need to
Right.
do it even
But I
more.
mean, we've technically boiled down that focus, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so-
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to commit to,
changing the commissions or figuring out what would work best.
right, right.
So, Mary Ann, do you have anything else to say about that?
As Lisa said, topics come and go, and sometimes a topic will impact more than one commission. And in fact, the Environmental Commission has said, hey, we'd like to get involved sometimes with the housing, or we'd like to get involved with planning commission as it's looking at environmental issues. So I was thinking that given the changes in technology, there may be some way to take advantage of pulling up people who are interested, as Lisa said, in working on a certain topic. That's what happens, like right now with the Vernay thing. So Tom and Mark and Nadia, they're passionate about this right now and they're working on it. But then another topic in that environmental commission may just sort of drag on and drag on. People come to the meeting and it's on the agenda and nothing's really happened. So, you know, we don't want to meet just to meet, and we don't want to waste people's time just to come to a meeting. So how can we keep things energized and have people doing work that they want to do and that's needed, and not just coming to a meeting if it's not really, nothing's really happening.
Right. So I'd like this, I mean, it seems to me like the next action item is that facilitated discussion. So I don't know if we need a template document. You mentioned that, maybe that could go into our next packet,
Yeah,
just to kind of.
I'd love to do that. It's just real simple,
Yeah,
you know, but I
yeah.
think if we all ask the same questions, and then the other thing that would be really helpful, Judy, I think it would be to pull the, I don't know if we need the full, like, charter, but at least the, like, the mission statement
Yeah.
of each commission all in one file. Because I think it will be really important
purpose.
for the commission members to be able to read them all and, you know, ask themselves, like, how do these things overlap? And what is the best service to the village?
And this is a good time, because we're heading into the end of the year.
Right.
When people on a commission can be looking at, okay, what have we done this year? Have we done enough to value, you know, continuing the next year? What are we going to do something next year? What is it going to be? You know, if we have to come up, if at the end of this year, we have an annual report that's like maybe up to 5 pages that includes each commission and the department, does each commission have they done enough that they can say in a paragraph, well, this is what we've done, this is the value we've added? And nothing against the people on the commission, but just trying to look at how we engage.
Yeah. So I want, okay, so I think at our next meeting, I'd like to look at that template, you know, just kind of make sure we're asking the questions we need to ask. But I do want to add to this discussion the capacity component, which I think you're also hitting at.
Yes.
And in particular, we need to make a decision about the Justice System Commission.
Yes.
Because
We've-
by, you know, in my, like, evaluation of this, I'm not sure that we have a current or potentially upcoming council member that has the interest or time to commit to that. And so I think on that one in particular, we need to think about other options.
And it may be that, for example, that if we do a citizen
Right.
advisory / review, that might be.
Which is, you know,
the
something that I
focus.
proposed. So, I mean,
Or if it's decided and the police department wants to engage in having some kind of community police conversation, dialogue of having a
Right.
community group that helps do
Right.
that ongoing.
Or it might be a manager's advisory board. I mean, so, you know, so anyway, but
and there may be collapsing. So, for
Yeah.
example, looking at the purposes of the Justice System Commission, which these are important topics for which many of us have great passion.
Right.
It's just a matter of capacity and efficiency and focus. And, you know, I wonder if there's an opportunity to combine certain commissions and have some transition of membership in order to accomplish goals that were important, because I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater there with the Justice System Commission.
well, and also, I guess, to me, it's been lingering, and I want us to have a strategy, because we need something. And, you know, and I think we need it soon, now that we're looking at the assessment.
Maybe when Judy pulls up the mission or charter statements for the commissions, we should also include, is it our 5 goals, condensed goals, that each commission would see, these are the council goals,
Right.
or village goals. How does this commission interact with those goals?
Yep, that's a good idea. Okay, good.
Just one other thing to consider, now, certainly, excuse me, one of the commissions, or it's a commission, that we're talking about is the Justice System Commission, which does not have much, if any, membership right now.
Or interest in membership.
Okay. So let's set that aside, and then let's consider two other commissions, maybe, that maybe are not generating enough steam, where you have, what, 7 people on this commission, 6 to 7 people on this one, and 6 to 7 on that one, but each of them just isn't hitting their stride. We talk about collapsing or combining. Is it too much to start thinking about, well, do we allow the commissions to be larger? I mean, we don't, even though we might not have steam or capacity, when you have a few people that just aren't getting it done, but they're still interested, and you got these folks as well, we don't want to just throw them away as well. So would we end up with a larger group? Of course, if it's a manager advisory board, you have the liberty to do that. But, if it's going to be a commission that's got more than the 7 people,
Right.
we need to consider what that's going to look like.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll follow up on that. It's a good thing to bring up. All right, Kevin, I believe you have a nomination?
Yes, so, received information, and everyone has this letter of interest on the table. Thank you, Judy, for doing that. Lindsay Burke has expressed interest in joining the HRC, Human Relations Commission. She's a longtime resident, a business owner, and she's currently running the Village Assistance Network. She's a board member on the Human Group, and other important community action activities she's been involved with. Kaneda and I met with her earlier, or last week. Last week, wow.
Thursday.
Wow, long week. And so, yeah, we're like, we're of a kindred spirit. And so, so I would like to nominate Lindsay as a member of the HRC.
And I'll second that. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
All
right,
right, thank you.
thank you. Josue, manager's report.
All right, thank you, Brian. First on my report is the residential solar. Thank you for passing the ordinance. I won't get into the details since we already covered that. Next is Public Works and Infrastructure Projects. Railroad Street parking lot is complete, so you'll see the 45 new parking spaces, and people are using it and parking the way that we intended it. So good. I want to recognize Johnny and the crew on the great job that they did over there by design. We didn't have to tell anyone how to park. They just figured it out. So
Wow.
we'll see how long it lasts.
Are those donation boxes out?
The donation boxes are up. We have 3 donation boxes up, one at the railroad parking lot and one at the basketball court lot, right
Okay.
at the entrance. And we have, the third one is a donation at the charging station, right in the middle of the charging
Okay.
station. So.
We getting any activity?
We did. We got $12.
Okay.
So it's something, it's over the weekend, so I think it'll pick up interest, and I think people would value the amenities that we're bringing to the village. One additional note on the railroad parking lot, we've added a cutout, so folks can access the parking lot from the bike path. So you no longer have to go to the end of the street or down by the courts to get to the parking lot. There's a cut right about 3/4 up from the lot, and it pulls into a dedicated bicycle parking space within the parking lot.
Wow.
So making it bike-friendly and accessible.
Nice. So I guess I want to say 2 things. We can let the donation boxes, I mean, we said we're going to try that out, but I want us to think about a sort of, if people aren't donating, some signage that strongly encourages it as a way to not like make it a paid lot, and then ultimately maybe it needs to become a paid lot. So I guess I want us to think about like some steps to encourage some support for providing that amenity. The other thing I didn't want to lose track of is, so I know that the youth center is renting out that lot to Peaches, to the Beards.
Right.
Now that we have more than doubled the spaces, I think that we should get more revenue from that.
More than double revenue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. So, but anyway, but I wanted to, point that
Okay.
out, because, I think more capacity, and then if they don't need all those spaces, we could,
Right.
but it's a great way to support our youth programming.
What are we
Absolutely.
renting out, Peaches?
400 is what they've been.
No, what?
Oh, the Dayton Railroad Street parking lot. So like for street fair, if I didn't say that. So every street fair, the Bryan Youth Center used to like manage it as like a kind of VIP parking lot, but then it shifted to just Peaches is like, we want all those spots for the vendors that set up in their parking lot. So, but anyway, more spaces, I think.
Yes, so we'll reach out to Peaches on that rental, and we'll update our signage to see if we can encourage more people to donate. I think there's also an effort to encourage, to reach out to the businesses, because I think they're the beneficiaries of additional parking, better layout of the parking. So we'll also reach out to them and see if we get anything.
Okay, great.
All right, on the Bryan Center parking, we've, there's additional parking spaces going on there. We expect to finish that project on the 29th. The driveway is complete, repairs and fence painting is complete. We've added additional lighting with a manual timer. I don't know if you've seen the basketball courts, but the electric power team added a knob, a manual timer, so they can add up to an hour and the lights turn on, and then they automatically turn off, so it doesn't require someone in the back office turning on and off the lights. So, nice feature.
Less light pollution.
Yes.
Laura Curlis.
Hey, I'm all for that.
So power washing and seal coating is underway on the courts this week. Repairs and cleanup on the hillside, the stairs and the storm drain is in progress. We're trying to figure out a solution for the stairs and how the water runs off that area, so we're working on that. We got power washing at the John Bryan Center. We've got the quarry sewer line replacement project that you just voted on earlier. I'll skip over the pool sales. The emergency management plan. In your package, you should see an emergency plan preparedness update. It includes a number of policies that we reviewed today. That's 64 with an additional 41 that are under review. Efforts that are currently underway. The police command staff participated in an active threat training session on August 20 and 21st. At the Montgomery County, and we've updated our roles and responsibility for the emergency support functions for local incidents, which it's attached to the report. Unless you need me to, we can go by area. There are several areas covered: transportation, communication, public works, and engineering, firefighting, emergency management, mass care, emergency assistance, housing and human services, logistics management and resource support, public health and medical services, such as search and rescue, oil and hazardous waste material response, agriculture and natural resources, energy, public safety and security, long-term community recovery, and external affairs. Also at the bottom of the report is the communication chain, of who are the individuals that are communicated with incidents and information on a need-to-know basis. So those individuals are listed in that report.
Thank you, everyone, for working on this. And I'd like to suggest that when it's complete, to whatever degree it's going to be complete, that maybe there'd be a special presentation at council, that we take a half hour or 45 minutes, I don't know, however long it takes, because this is critical. And it seems like it would be good for people in the community, one, to know that we're doing it, and two, to know what's involved in it.
Yes. I think that's something we can work.
One thing, absolutely. The section that we are missing is mapping our location, those those kind of things for staging details. Some of the active threat situations are not public, but the rest of it is. And so that's the second part of this that'll complete.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we provided an update on the Vernay remediation plan, utility roundup discussion. I've taken notes on some of the things you want to see, and we will bring information to the council on relevant information on the performance of this program. We're also looking to secure grant funding for this program to make it sustainable. I got an email from Kevin about increasing our request to $10,000 to include not just donation money, but other money to ensure sustainability of the program.
Are you talking about asking the community foundation? for that?
The
Oh, good.
There's an
Okay.
grant application we're working
Yeah,
on.
'cause-
Mhm.
oh, God.
We could ask the community foundation.
Not for 10.
2020 budget preparation and timeline, this is included in your packet. We are already in the process of drafting the 2020 budgets. Colleen has distributed the department budgets, so that's taking place. We'll have internal meetings through September 10th to review those budgets with the Director of Finance and myself. We're looking to bring a presentation to the council on October 21st. This is the initial presentation on the budget, and that we intend to introduce the council for approval. That introduction scheduled for November 4th as the first reading of the ordinance to approving the 2020 budget for the village, and a second reading November 18th. So here are the few asks that we have of you, and you've all should have received emails on request of 2 sessions. So we're looking to have work sessions with council. We propose 2 work sessions to review: 1, the general fund, enterprise fund, special revenue, capital funds. We would like the council's availability during the following periods to schedule 2 4-hour sessions to review these, to review the budgets. I think I'll work with Judy on scheduling those work sessions, so thank you for making your availability known for those meetings. And I've talked about the emergency plan, and there are 2 other items I would like to discuss. One is the active transportation plan. I don't know what detail you want to go into this, Brian. And then the street sign that it's in your packet. This is the street sign to orient visitors and residents to where our Yellow Springs facilities are. How in depth you want to go with the Walnut Street?
So have we confirmed that, did you talk to Principal Hausch about?
So we haven't gone through the details. We've continued doing the outline on our end, how we will prep it, so that when we do meet with the stakeholders, we have a plan in place on how we would operationalize that. So from a...
So we haven't secured a date for sure with them, or?
No, we have not, but we have a tentative timeline that we've discussed internally. So we're looking to bring announce a plan at council. We're looking to launch a communication plan on the proposal around September 9th, a set of barriers and road markings on the Walnut Street and around the property on September 21st. It is a Saturday, but at this, we identify a Saturday so we can dedicate the resources we need to configure the space to what we need done. And then we would run the active transportation initiative from September 23rd through October 12th. During this period, we will collect feedback, conduct observations and surveys to see how the intervention strategy is working. So now on the intervention strategy, we're looking to create Walnut Street from Short Street to Limestone as one way, and have it one direction, make part of the road pull-in parking, and make another increase the space that is dedicated for drop-off and pickup. We believe that this initiative will reduce the congestion and reduce the safety hazards that are present with so many kids being dropped off and picked up.
And do we have that diagram, Judy, or?
Oh, yes, just this computer took that long to
Okay.
get there.
Yeah, so I'll just, again, remind folks that when we did our active transportation plan, and that was developed across a 6-month time period, the project that rose to the top with all the public feedback that we got was to resolve the pickup drop-off potential hazard around Mills Lawn. So that suggestion was to make it one-way. I think it also resolves the wonky intersection at Walnut and Limestone. And at the end of the day, we want to do this as a temporary transportation project. So the schools are supporting it. So it sounds like we just need to get the final okay that we can start the last week of September. We wanted to do it before the weather got too bad. And then, of course, we want to have a process for getting feedback about, does this fix the problem? How do we need to tweak it, and that sort of thing. We are not going to do the back-end parking.
Okay.
So for folks, so for folks that were wondering about the orientation of the parking, the diagonal parking, that was back-end parking. Apparently, lots of communities embrace it. I'm not sure ours would. So we're not gonna, that's not gonna be part of the temporary transportation project, and probably not gonna be, I think, we've already refined it. We're not gonna do it that way.
So what would the parking be?
But I think that we would want to look at angled parking in a forward direction. It would maximize spaces, and, I think it would be helpful. But my understanding is, we're going to focus on the one-way thing, and then we'll figure out the parking stuff later. One step at a time. All right, Mark, you want to say something?
It's just one way from Limestone to Short Street?
From Elm up to Limestone, so it's going one way in that direction. And that's part of what we need to test out. There were discussions about, like, what about one way the other way? But the planners thought that, based on the information they had, that it would be better to head south.
Well, a lot of times I go, north on 68.
Yep.
And I go down Walnut Street on my way to the brewery.
Right.
That's the way up that way,
Yep.
And so now we have to go through downtown or go over to High Street and then.
Right.
And then over.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. If we decide that it's a permanent fix, right? So, but we'll try it first and see what people think.
Did you say close one way from Elm or from Short? Because if it's Short, then people can still make that jog through Short up to Elm.
So actually, that's a good question. The proposal was from Elm, but you guys are thinking about starting it at Short?
Yes, we're thinking about Short, and we also have identified another opportunity. Since that we're testing Walnut, we could also test an initiative on Short Street, making Short Street one-way. So coming north on 68, being able to make that left turn onto Short as a one-way, and have the lane be the left lane, and we can add additional parking on the right side, not just car parking, but also bicycle parking. And then folks who are able to turn left on Short and turn right onto Walnut at that intersection point of Walnut and Short Streets. So then you create another avenue for which folks that want to get to the brewery and cut across Walnut can cut down 68, turn on Short, and then right on Walnut.
Right.
Janetta had a comment.
Yes.
So, about the wonky intersection there, is it going to be right turn only off of Walnut to Limestone?
Yes, that's the plan.
That's
to have
Yeah.
right turn only, and you will avoid the
Doesn't show
congestion
that.
of that left turn lane. Yes, this year doesn't have it, but we talked about this other measure of making a right turn only to avoid the congestion of the vehicles
Yeah.
that are looking to turn left on Limestone to turn right on 68.
Yeah.
One additional thing we want to do is put a left turn signal on 68. You may have noticed that a lot of folks turn left onto Limestone from 68, and some folks adhere to, the practice of staying as far left as you can to allow cars to the right. Others don't; they stay right in the middle, and folks can get through. So we're hoping to do some road markings and also a street light, a left turn signal, so that folks are able to make that left turn and others are able to bypass the folks that are turning left.
I have one more question, and then maybe just as someone who uses this almost daily. So if I'm going down Walnut Street, let's say it's drop-off time, will there be a place for, so there will be a place for people to pull off and people to continue traffic?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yep. And, I imagine also, this gives us an opportunity just like the wide crosswalk at the main entrance, to do something like that at the other entrance for
Yes.
3rd and 4th graders.
Yep.
So, and then, there's the 5th and 6th grader thing. So, I mean, this would be a great way to, expand that space, so. Okay, but remember, it's temporary.
That's
So, we try it, we see how it works, we get feedback, and, I mean, ultimately, these are things that the community identified as needing,
None.
treatments. Okay? All right, so, and then, what was the other thing?
So the feedback I needed that we want from you guys, is what do you think about the Short Street Initiative? It's something that we didn't address in the initial concept, but it's a great opportunity, given that we're already trying something on Walnut, to try Short Street. And we can see them both as one, or evaluate the feedback as individual parts of the project. So where do we want to include Short Street?
So I am game for that if you guys have thought it through and think it's, not gonna be more complicated. So, so you guys are good with it? All right?
If we're
Council?
testing a new design, we should test it. I think that's the most excellent aspect of it, is that we can try this out, so we might as well.
Okay,
Agreed.
all right,
Do you want to add anything,
Yeah.
Donna?
yeah.
One thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows is the turn signal that goes on the traffic light, it will not be temporary, it's going to be a permanent. The road marking will not be, it won't change, but if you're coming from Clifton area and you get to 343 and 68,
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to turn left or go straight before the other light changes. That's what we want to implement down
Right.
there, coming north on 68, is to be able to have traffic clear that
Right.
intersection versus waiting for people to turn.
Yeah, I mean,
So
when I think about the temporary, I think about like the one-ways and
Yeah.
Short Street
that
one-way.
all will be
and That's
but
temporary.
When you see a turn signal,
Mhm.
that will be not, it
Sure.
won't be temporary.
Right.
It'll be permanent.
Okay.
So, I think that's all I had, other than we would be eliminating the drop-off on Limestone, because we don't want traffic to be congested at that. So we work with the schools to have them drop off on Walnut side as well.
Okay.
And there's more space on Walnut,
Mhm.
so they'll just be apart. And I think that's something that we can work with the school on.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the sign.
All right, so this is the welcome sign, or the directory where our facilities and offices are. So this is the proposal from the team. It's up on the screen and on your packets. Any feedback, we're welcome to any feedback. We've also, what's new on here is we added a tagline right below Yellow Springs.
Well, I think we should, I don't have an opinion one way or the other exactly about shaping our future, but I think it's something that we should get vetted for a while. I think the sign looks cool, and I would put village offices and then police department right under that, and maybe then have a space and have the other things be a little lower. I mean, because it's important for people to know where the village offices are, and very important for people to know where the police department, so I think those should stand out.
One thing that Megan just pointed out is we could also put public parking on one of those areas as well.
Okay.
And there's approximately, the white space is actually a see-through, and so there'll be a 6-inch gap right there between each sign.
Okay. And then, art gallery should be John Bryan Community Gallery
Okay.
to match the sign that we have out here. In terms of the colors, is it gonna be that burnt orange rather than this
It is,
orange?
It will be.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanna make sure it matches our logo colors. And you got,
Matches the new business cards.
okay, good. So then I guess the other question here is, to council is, are there any other items besides parking that we would want to add? Because it looks like we've got 2 more spaces.
Well, the other thing would be the location of it. If we want to put it back in the same spot that it is now, or if we want to move it to where the flagpole is, facing that direction.
Youth center, You might want to.
Ah, yeah, good idea.
And maybe the gym. Because that's different than the basketball court, I guess.
Okay.
It sort of reminds me a little bit, the design of the Little Art Theater, something about that. So-
If you scroll back down, actually my 2 meter readers are the ones that come up with this. And if you go out front and look at the front side of the building, that architectural design is the same as what
Oh.
John Bryant Center is.
Oh,
Where is this going
That's what I'm asking is if we want to put it back in the same location, or if we want to move it to where the flagpole is.
Yeah, I would say the latter. I think it should be more prominent,
Okay.
like out towards the entrance, so,
Agreed.
yeah.
And then if we do put it there, then we have the opportunity for other things on the back of the sign. So when you're walking back up to town, do we want to put something on the backside?
Yeah, so Johnny and I talked about, like, we could have things like a welcoming community, you know, and that kind of, you know, some of our value statements, which I like a lot.
Nice.
So,
maybe that should be the tagline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Community.
It will be, yeah, whereas actually putting a new panel behind it and that'd be grounded.
Should we put public restrooms on there?
I was going to say that exact
Yeah.
thing.
public restrooms.
Yeah.
On the back side, like when people come out of their cars, so they know which way the public restrooms are.
Okay, so let's do this. I mean, we wanted a new sign. I know, Johnny, you've been thinking about this for a long time, and it's long overdue. So why don't we give it until the next meeting for any other thoughts about what should be on it? And then we'll make a final decision and put it in production.
That'd be fine, because they're actually doing meter reads right now, so that gives them a couple weeks and collect our thoughts, and then they'll assemble it.
Did we catch Mary Ann's comment that
A welcoming
a
community?
welcoming community might be another tagline?
Yeah.
It's a dementia-friendly community, too.
Well,
So if you're lost, look at the back.
I know, bicycle friendly. We're
It can't just say friendly.
Maybe it needs to rotate.
Because we're really not all that friendly.
Sometimes
Okay.
friendly.
Sometimes friendly community.
all right, well, exciting.
Monday,
Thanks for
Wednesday,
doing that work. Yeah, Laura.
Is it going to be ground mount?
Ground mount, yeah, okay. All right, great. Judy?
Nothing except to say thank you so much for a great summer, pool staff. Sorry to see the pool close. It was a fabulous summer, and
Oh, I bet those doggies are sad too. All right.
want to get in.
Okay, so with that, future agenda items. So we've obviously flagged a few things. Any other thoughts for agenda planning?
So I have your commission's review as a topic for
Yes.
new business. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Draft resolution supporting House Bill 229 in old business. Supporting the Glenn resolution, just ready to roll?
Yep.
Okay. That's what I've got.
All right.
I am unhappy to say that I can't confirm that the health assessment results will be presented. I'm leaving it on there for now, but I may pull it.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we keeping something about the police assessment on, or?
We should.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that'll just go, that'll go under old business. So it's,
Would that be to still collect comments, or maybe
Additional
schedule
comments.
the community forum, or?
Something.
Certainly additional comments, because I think I heard a general theme that people felt
Needed more time?
Yeah.
rushed. We all felt rushed, the community members who came.
Okay.
And I guess you could be working with staff
Yes.
on comment.
Yes.
okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for people who hung out the whole meeting.
Staff.
Ah.
Yeah, you gotta be stealthy.